Welcome to How We Heard It, the podcast about music, pop culture, movies, and more, with your hosts Wayne Bledsoe and Chuck Campbell.
Welcome to How We Heard It. This is Chuck Campbell with my co-host
Wayne Bledsoe.
And this week we've got an interesting, different type of topic for us, because something that we've heard all our careers is people ask, what's it like to interview celebrities and what were they like? And the answer to that is it depends. It's like celebrities are like any other people, probably a little more neurotic than average people, but we're all a little bit neurotic. Some of them may be a little psychotic too, but in general, the celebrities are just people, and they have good days and bad days just like we do. And sometimes you really vibe with them and you have great interviews, and sometimes something goes wrong and it's not so great, or it's fantastic, or it's funny. But the interesting thing, I think, is that we always write stories. The whole system for doing celebrity interviews in the past was like a transactional thing. It was like the celebrities had something to gain from you writing about them, and of course you had something to gain in return. So if, for example, a musician or a band is touring the country, they may set up 15 interviews around the country for the stops that they would be stopping at. And you would write up a story. You'd do a phone interview with them and write up a story that publishes online and in print before they get to town. That helps them sell tickets. And then by talking to celebrities, that supposedly entices people to buy subscriptions. So everyone wins. So there's also like a formula, or there was sort of a formula, how most writers did these types of stories. And Wayne, I've got to say you're an exception, because you always tried to connect with people on different things, and you didn't just ask the same old questions. But no, I would say, I mean, that you were my go-to writer, man. But normally, if they're going to do 15 interviews, 14 of those interviewers who weren't Wayne, they would ask pretty much the same questions, and the celebrities would give pretty much the same answers, and you would pretty much get the same story. But in every case, when you interview something, there's always stuff that happens behind the scenes that we never really thought of to make stories out of. And it could be like funny things that happened, or ways you all got on each other's nerves, or, and that's just something you didn't put in a story because it just wasn't done. And that doesn't mean it shouldn't have been done, because people do have an interest in like behind the scenes stuff. So this week we decided to go back over, I'm calling it some of our most memorable interviews. We originally called it best interviews, but I think the ones that might be more interesting weren't even necessarily the best interviews. Yeah. Some have been cut short, and sometimes. Well, anyway, things happen, and going through just the interviews I've done, this could be several shows for us, and I know you've done far more interviews than I have.
Thousands. Actually.
So we're going to just do one today, and we're going to I'm looking over at John. No, we're not going to talk for 4 hours here. We're still going to try to keep it short and normal format, but we're going to go and just talk about different kinds of interviews that we've had, and we can revisit this with the ones that we're not going to talk about today.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any comments you want to make there? Or?
Well, I mean, some of this, what I kind of prepared is they weren't always, part of what I've done is celebrity encounters.
Yes.
Because it's not, even though you were there to do a story, it wasn't always about them, or it wasn't just a direct interview. I went on tour with a few people.
Right.
And then I just had some encounters backstage sometimes with people that were pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah, I agree exactly. Honestly, the phone interview, if you don't follow up, if you don't go to their show, you don't see them in person,
right.
It's easier to forget the phone interview, even if it was a good interview, because it was kind of anonymous, and and you don't see them, and you talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then that's it.
Yeah, and you don't make a connection. Sometimes you do make a connection, but they don't remember who you are.
No. Because they're given the same answers. They even if you try to ask them different questions, a lot of celebrities will steer it into the things they're going to talk about.
Well, the best compliment I ever got from anybody was Lucinda Williams, because I talked to her a few times, and I said, "You probably don't remember me, And she said, I always remember you. You're the one who, it never seems like we're doing an interview. It just seems like we're talking.
Right. I had that connection with Downtown Julie Brown from MTV. I talked to her every year for several years when I was covering spring break in Florida. And she always remembered me, and she always, she's always waiting for when we're going to talk. And she was funny and a prankster, and maybe I'll talk about her some other time. But she was a good one like that.
Well, go ahead and start. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to start. So one thing about doing this podcast is like I'm really analyzing my life, I feel like, and thinking about things that I'd never really thought of before. And I came upon this realization. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before now, but in preparing for this, I went back, and my first celebrity interview was Joan Jett.
Uh-huh.
All right, and then the last celebrity that I talked to was Dolly Parton, and that spanned like decades of my career. And I don't know if I could have asked for better bookends to my career in like newspaper or entertainment journalism than those two. They both have similarities, and like their frames are kind of small. Dolly's bigger in some places than Joan Jett, but they're both like small women. They're both extremely kind and down to earth. Yeah. And it's exactly what I needed from Joan Jett when I talked to her, because I had no idea how I was going to work out as a celebrity interviewer. Because, in the newsroom, you always had people who would interview governors and police and all of that stuff without even thinking twice about it. But if you asked them to interview a singer, they'd get all like nervous and they wouldn't want to do it. And that was interesting because they're doing this real hard coverage, and we're just saying, hey, just talk to this person who sings for a living.
But it's harder to some extent because when you've got a politician, you've got somebody like that, you know what the questions are going to be.
Yeah.
And when you've got an entertainer or somebody where it's not hard news, it could be anything.
It could be anything. And there are really interesting types of people who go into entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't know where you're going to go with them until you talk to them.
Right.
But the Joan Jett interview, it was, I'd been there in Florida for less than a year, and she was coming to perform at the Bandshell on spring break. And the Bandshell is like an open theater on the beach. And it was a phoner interview. It was the usual setup, phoner interview, and then meet her when she came to town. And she was just like right away, just real conversational and not that badass that you're afraid she's going to be. And, and she's just like talking about music. And she was just helping me along. I thought she probably knew that this isn't something I've done a lot. I'm sure I was like, question number one, that kind of dumb questions and all that stuff. And she was fine with it. And she was very, very kind. And, at one point she was talking about being on the road and how, she was well established as a star at this point, and how rough it was, because she said that, you're on the road all the time. So you're traveling and you're going out on stage and you're working over your vocal cords, and you've got to perform for an audience every night, and you're trying to get sleep, and you're eating what you can, and you're trying to stay in shape. And she said, it's an effing shitty job. Only she didn't say effing. She used the word. I'm not using it here because I'm not sure how like Apple or Spotify feels about the F word.
Think about the music that they play.
I know. But
we shouldn't edit ourselves.
I'm saying shitty at least. But anyway, so she says an effing shitty job. And I said, I don't think I can use that in a family newspaper. And she laughed. And she said, okay, it's a shitty job. and I said, well, I don't think I can use that either. And she goes, she said, it's real hard. And she just laughed and I laughed. And I just had a really good from beginning to end conversation with her, and wrote a story and thought I did okay for beginning entertainment journalist, and probably not any prize winner or anything like that. But she sure made it, a better story. And then she came and I got to go backstage and watch her do the show, which was fantastic because, everybody was out and you could see the ocean and everything, and she was performing. And then after the show, we went into her tour bus and we just hung out in her tour bus. I think Kenny Laguna, maybe. Do you know that name? That was her.
Yeah, that's her manager, yeah.
Super nice guy. And he's like, y'all just hang out, and like he was running around getting things ready.
Amazing relationship.
Yeah. And they were close, and she was close, and he was running around getting her ready for like a press conference or whatever after the show. And she, we had good conversations. She was very personable, and it was sort of private conversation. Even I was surprised how open she was with me, and that was nice. And then we went out, and our photographer from my paper was there, and they got her next to the bench held to take her picture. And my photographer's like, get in that picture. And I was like, oh, I don't think that's right. And he goes, go on, get in that picture. And she like saw me and she waved me over, so I went over and I stood next to her, and there was a cop there who was also posing, and someone pushed this kid into the photo too. So there's like this little 7-8-year-old boy that just like kind of stumbling into the picture with a weird look on his face, and it was all awkward. She looked great. She had that white skin, and the sun beaming down on it and everything. But, I looked awkward, and I thought, I don't think it's right for me to be posing with pictures with people I interview. So that was kind of like something I decided at the beginning. And going back and looking, I really do think that the next time I posed with a celebrity for a picture was that last time with Dolly Parton. Wow. Because I don't remember. I know that there were pictures taken of me working with celebrities, like by our photographers or whatever. But as far as just standing there and smiling and taking the picture. And it was interesting because the Dolly Parton thing, she had for 20 years, I was like the entertainment editor in Knoxville. And so I worked with Dollywood. I worked with Dolly's personal publicist and her theme park publicist, and to get everything and publicize stuff and get statements from her and all of that. And normally, I had assigned reporters who would talk to her, and then we had photographers and online people whose jobs was to go interview Dolly. And the Dolly people are just so nice. They just seem like they love their jobs. I don't think they're faking it. I think that they're just in a place that treats them well and they enjoy it. And they were always super nice to me, always trying to get me to come up to Dollywood when they were having every year before the season opens. She has an opening appearance, a media day, and then they open the park for the season, like the next day. So they talked me into coming up in 2020, and it was March of 2020. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'd agreed to go was the reporter I had on assignment for that, she had never talked to a celebrity yet. And so the Dollywood people were like, is she okay? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we're sure she's okay, but is she okay? I was like, she's absolutely okay. And she was. And then the photographer who went also wasn't the one who usually shot Dolly. And I thought, well, I'll go up this time. And they were all excited that I was coming up there and hooking me up and, having me hang out with Dolly some. And we got up there, and I kept saying, are you sure this is okay? You sure this is okay? Because this is exactly when COVID was blowing up, and there was no vaccine for it. Everybody just knew they were going to die from it. The mask, how safe were the masks? How do you get it? How do you get rid of it? Who's it going to kill? And Dolly's an older person, and I asked them a couple of times that week, are you sure this is still on? They're like, as far as we know. And then they got up there, and they came out, and they were so apologetic. And they were like, we're so sorry. We just can't let her be around people. They've just decided that we got to cut off the concert. And that made total sense. And, we drove back to Knoxville. And but then from then on, they were just like, please come up, because they felt like it was their fault somehow that COVID happened. And so in 2022, I don't know if they had a media day in 2021, but in 2022, we had a different team to go up. We had one photographer who usually did cover Dollywood for us, and then we had a writer who is like a veteran writer but had never talked to Dolly. And they wanted me to go too, so everybody wanted me to go up. And I did, and they brought us Dolly. When you interview her at Dollywood, they take you to the resort, and she has an old tour bus there that has been converted into like a suite outside of the resort, and she uses it kind of as an office space and everything, and that's where she goes. And so there were all these people from all around the country that were there, all these media people, and they were coming and going, and they were crying, and whenever they would come out from the interview with Dolly, like in the bus, they'd come out crying, and they were like, she's everything you want her to be. And it was like really crazy, and these are like professional journalists, and they're all just emotional and crazy. And so we went in, and I wasn't doing the like official part of the interview, but we were talking, and I was sitting right next to her. They had me sit next to her. I was like, felt like I was just in the way. Right. Oh, and I want to point out too, this was also a tour bus setup, and I'd only been on like 3 tour buses my whole career. And Joan Jett was the first interview on a tour bus, and then Dolly Parton on a tour bus. So really interesting stuff, or maybe not. But anyway, one thing, she knew that I was local, and she knew she's from Sevier County, and I'm from Blount County, and those are neighboring counties, and they both take up most of the Great Smoky Mountains, those two counties, as far as the Tennessee side goes. So we talked about stuff like that, and we talked about, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and everything. And then when they finished conducting the interview, I got up and kind of ran for the door. And the Dollywood people are great. They said, "Would you like your picture with Dolly?" It's like I had not done this since Joan Jett all those years before. And, I just kind of stood by the door, and I thought, well, the other people in my team might want to take a picture. And they were all looking at me. And Dolly, waved me over. And I'm like, okay, well, the truth is, who doesn't want their picture made with Dolly, So I thought, well, why not? And so I went over. And then she pulled me even closer. I stood next to her, and she pulled me closer. And I felt like my head kind of getting light. And I just said, I'm about to pass out. And so she started rubbing my back and patting my back and everything while they were taking the pictures. And I didn't pass out. But
she's probably used to that.
Yeah, I'm sure she's had people pass out.
Sure she
and she's a little woman. She's got to watch out if someone's passing out next to her, she could get crushed. But It was great, and I think that there's just something symbolic about having those two really iconic, strong women musicians. And pretty much my whole career as a critic and everything, I tried to focus on women musicians because in the beginning, when I was doing reviews, almost all the critics were white guys. Yep. And white guys wrote about other white guys, or at least other guys. The women weren't written about as often. They weren't given as much credibility in general. And there are a lot of exceptions, but I wanted to be that exception, And every week, if there was a big album coming out from a woman and a big act coming out from a man, I would tend to review the woman instead.
Right.
And part of that was a strategy on my part too, not just women's rights and whatever, but I knew that there would be 500 reviews of that man, and there may only be 100 reviews of the woman. So I was going to throw my lot in with the women singers, and it always worked for me. But I thought that it's just symbolic that two of the strongest women in music, modern history, were my beginning and end, my bookends for all of that. That must have been 2 hours just there. So anyway, Wayne, why don't you?
Mine's going to be long too, but mine's not as significant as far as my career goes, but it does involve. I think my first, as far as nationally known, big nationally known, that was a familiar name. I think the first person I interviewed was Ricky Skaggs. I'd done several people who were national performers, but they were locally based. But and I've interviewed Ricky all through the years. And we've always gotten along. We always get into sort of a friendly debate about politics or whatever, because he's always said something that I ask him about, and we're totally on opposite sides. But Ricky's one of those people. He toured with Bruce Hornsby and Ry Cooder, who are absolutely polar opposites politically of him.
Right.
But anyway, I was backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. I was interviewing Bill Monroe. And Bill Monroe is a tough interview. I'd interviewed him on the phone before. He is one of those guys that's he's going to give you one-word answers. He's barely going to answer anything until he realizes, well, this son of a bitch ain't going to go anywhere. And I was that guy who wasn't going to go anywhere. So he'd finally start talking. And so I'm backstage in a dressing room, and people are coming through here and there, and I'm with him, and whoever his handler was is a woman that was there with him. And I asked him about the Stanley Brothers.
Okay.
Well, if you know anything about Bill Monroe was so angry about the Stanley Brothers because he thought they were stealing his shtick.
Oh, really?
And Columbia Records, he was on back in the late 40s, early 50s, he left Columbia Records because they signed the Stanley Brothers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But this had been, 40 years ago. Maybe 50 years. I can't remember how long. He was old. He was in his 80s, maybe, when I talked to him this time.
Too late to change him now.
Well, I thought, it's probably safe to, he's got bluegrass bands all over the place. And, he's revered as the father of bluegrass music and everything. But anyway, so I said, well, what did you think about when the Stanley Brothers came up and, they started, kind of doing the style of music? And all of a sudden, it was like storm clouds had gathered in the father of bluegrass music. And you could, I mean, I was like, oh, hell. Because, I mean, he shot me the worst look. And then he started to go off. And right about that time, Ricky Skaggs walks through the room and says, yeah, but Bill, we're kind of over all that stuff, aren't we? We're not really mad about that anymore, are we? And he goes, well, I guess not. And so we start getting, I get some more answers from him. He loosened up a little bit, but I was like, I thought I was like, went right off the rails. And but Ricky saved me. It was like, I don't think
what do you think would have happened if Ricky hadn't come along?
Oh, he was about to just go off on me.
Yeah.
But, I don't think I ever properly thanked Ricky for saving me. But I have to tell you the other, because you got me thinking about in-person encounters.
Right.
We were talking about this earlier.
Right.
So quite a while after that, I was at it was right when the Music City News Awards, which was a publication about Nashville country music, and the CMT Awards had sort of merged. And I went to that for the first time, and there was a fellow who was a promoter I knew, and he said, he spotted me as I was coming, and he says, Wayne, Tanya Tucker's here. Everything you ever heard about her, it's all true. So I'm like, what's she going to do? Is she going to snort cocaine off of, a bodybuilder's stomach or something? I don't know. So I'm backstage talking with Ricky and Sharon White, his wife.
Okay, right.
And, I'm just gathering stuff, to talk about what it's like to be there and things. And Tanya Tucker comes flitting by. And she starts flirting with Ricky Skaggs in front of Sharon White, just like you would not believe. And she says, oh, yeah, we need to get together. We need to get together sometime. She said, we need to get together and have breakfast. And when she said breakfast, the way she said it made it sound like after a full night of hot and heavy, not bluegrass music.
Right.
Right.
After doing a special duet.
And it was all to piss Sharon White off. Sharon was just steaming.
And it worked, huh?
Oh, and she was just, Sharon steps in and says, yeah, we'll have to get together and have a biscuit. And if the word biscuit had been a bullet, Tanya Tucker would be dead right now. Because, she just tried to drive that through her. It was like, cobras don't have as much venom as what Sharon White was spitting out with that.
Biscuit.
So Tanya Tucker just kind of laughs and goes flitting off to, cause chaos in some other relationship. And it was like, and Ricky is standing there like, well, I don't know what I can possibly do here. And I can't remember what Sharon said to me afterwards, but it was like, it was like kind of like, you've ever seen a big dog run or a little dog run off a big dog?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, just kind of like scuffing the ground and like, well, to hell with that one. But it was great. It was so funny that it was like, but it's funny because Ricky has been through the entire however many years, 38, 40 years that I've written, he's always kind of come back up.
Right.
And I've interviewed him, and we've gone further and further afield of each other's political views. But
and that's the kind of story that you wouldn't think to put in a newspaper.
No, you couldn't put
back in the day.
Back then.
But now that would be the only part of the story people would want to hear. So we've gone so far in the other direction. They don't want to hear them talk about their music or anything. They just want to hear the dirt.
Yeah, and it was just such. It made me like both Tanya Tucker and Sharon White better.
Yeah,
because Tanya was just doing what Tanya does.
Yeah,
she gave me the best answer, the most honest answer, I think, when I talk to anybody about drugs, because generally you'd say, because all these people were on cocaine in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s and different drugs, and usually when you'd ask people about their drug experiences, they go, oh yeah, that was a real rough time in my life. And I asked Tanya about hers, her drug years. She goes, hell, I had a great time. She said, but you can't do that forever. It'll kill you.
I love David Bowie's comment about doing drugs. He said, I only did drugs once, from 1968 to 1984.
And this is John Baker, our engineer.
Yes. We've got him a mic because he brings the fire, so we like that.
Well, I don't know about that, but comic relief.
Although, David Bowie, that's kind of a sore spot with me, but okay. I respect that. I respect that comment. Well, you want me to plunge on to a different one?
Give us another one.
All right. So let's go back to the mid-'90s, what I call the Lilith Fair era of women singer-songwriters.
Right.
You had everyone from Sheryl Crow to Fiona Apple. And we had two of my favorites coming into town like 3 weeks apart. And it was in 94, the summer of 94. And it was Tori Amos and Sarah McLachlan. And I had phone interviews set up with both of them. So when I talked to Tori Amos, she was everything you would think she would be. She was ethereal and polite, and she was really playing to her persona of, being that kind of goddess sort of, not flighty, but, little spirit type person. And she was also very kind, and she gave me some good dirt. She talked about Trent Reznor and how hot she thought he was and how he was a bad boy. And she was kind of lingering on that. And I thought, this is something more earthy and primal than you might always get from her. And that was good. And then we also talked about, she was born in North Carolina, Western North Carolina. So on the East Tennessee side of the mountains, or, like all across the mountains from East Tennessee. Right. And she really grew up in Maryland, I believe it was. But I think her grandparents still lived in North Carolina, so she spent a lot of time there. And I asked her what she misses about the South. And she said, I miss Krispy Kreme donuts. And, at this point, Krispy Kreme wasn't all over the country the way it is now. And people would come in, if they came into Knoxville, if they came into Asheville or whatever, they would just raid Krispy Kreme and, pig out on that. And at her show, I put that in the story because it was like, that's funny. And I put that in the story. And at the show, I noticed people kept walking down the aisle and going to the stage. And there was somebody there who was collecting stuff. And I realized people were taking her Krispy Kreme donuts. It was like box after box after box of donuts. And, Tori Amos is the kind of person you think might eat one bite of one donut and that's it, But and when she came out on stage, if I remember this right, she came out on stage and she sat at the piano and everyone applauded and it got quiet and she went, "Thanks for the donuts." And then she started performing. But the interview with her was, her songs are enigmatic, and I asked her about I don't remember which song it was, but what the meaning was behind one. And she chilled, and she said, I don't really like to talk about the meanings of my songs. It's like other people, I want them to bring their own meanings to it and take from it what they will. And it's like, oh, okay. And I almost felt like, apologizing. I'm sorry I asked you, what your song was about or whatever. But otherwise, it was a good interview. And, it's pretty, straightforward. And she was, again, who she wanted to be in the interview. Well, then comes Sarah McLachlan, okay? And Sarah McLachlan also has this mystique about her, and she had, like, very emotional songs, and her first big hit was a song called Possession, and it's kind of an upsetting song about someone who's infatuated with someone, and you're not sure what's going on. And Sarah McLachlan was, like, down to earth when we were talking, and she was just totally normal and approachable. I think she's from Canada, but she was just like super normal and friendly and everything. And we were just going through, talking normal interview. And I wanted to ask her about Possession, but because of Tori Amos, I was like a little afraid to ask her what it was about. Yeah, because it's got some dark lyrics and it sounds almost like there's a threat of murder or something like that in it. And I said, I know. Some songwriters, they don't want to talk about their lyrics. And she goes, who doesn't want to talk about their lyrics? I said, well, just some. I was asking one, and she said she didn't really, just a few weeks ago, and she didn't really want to give me an answer. She said, who is that? And I said, well, it's Tori Amos. And she asked me what song I was talking about. I was talking about Possession. She goes, well, I don't want to know what Tori Amos would say, but that song was about a guy who was stalking me, and I got a restraining order out against him. And she was just like, it was just like real funny, and she just flattened in. And from then on, I've been more comfortable interviewing and asking people what their songs are about. It was good because some guy was stalking her, and her story was that she wanted to put herself in his position And like, how would you feel if you were just obsessed with someone who was like a public figure? And she said, but meanwhile, she was like afraid to walk in front of her door and everything. Yeah. But it was great. It was great. It was down to earth. And later I've seen her do, her music's been used for like animal shelters and all of that stuff. That's what she's known for. And she's done a lot of comedic things about that have made fun of that. So, and I think there was one, oh gosh, I wish I had looked this up. But there was one, and it was some kind of, I can't remember it exactly. I can't do it justice, but it was some kind of skit about something was happening to animals, and she goes, hold on, I'm writing a song about it now, But anyway.
Well, I'm glad she's got a sense of humor about it now, because when I interviewed her the last time, she didn't have much of a sense of humor.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed her a couple of times.
She came to town. That when I interviewed her, she came to the Tennessee Theater. They both came to the Tennessee Theater. I think they both ended up coming back and going to the Coliseum. So you probably talked to her after I had.
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure I did. I talked to her twice, I think. But the last time I interviewed her, I said something about just kind of joking around. I said, well, I hear your voice, and I'm glad I'm not crying, because normally when I hear your voice these days, I'm about to cry. Because it's like the picture of this animal, looking...
with something shaking in a cage.
And she said, and she could tell she was a little bit offended by it. And she said, well, I think that I'm proud of that those commercials. I think they've done a lot of good. And I said, I think they've done a lot of good too. I said, I just now immediately when I think of you, I think of that song, and I think, I'm going to be y'all tearing up.
Maybe she's just tired of it,
She probably,
or maybe she just didn't like you.
That's possible. Well, the one where I really, really stuck my foot in my mouth was Joey Ramone. And I love the Ramones.
I know.
And I was just so excited to be talking to Joey Ramone. And I was like, and this is true. I mean, when the Ramones came out, you read all this really kind of scary stuff about them. That's what I was saying. I said, when you guys first came out, I read about you a long time before I actually got to hear you, because nobody was playing you here. And I said, it's like all this scary kind of stuff, how rough and rowdy and stuff you are. And I said, and then I hear your music, and I said, it's just good old dumb rock and roll.
Oh, okay, I remember.
He goes,
whoops.
Well, first of all, my music is not dumb. I was like, oh, no, that's, what. Yeah, it's like, the whole reason, I could use a word like that is because dumb was in their lyrics so much,
Right.
It's kind of slang for us to like go get stupid or go get dumb. It's
right.
Like, you're going to have a good time. But I had to explain it to him, and then he warmed back up after that, but it was still an edge.
Right.
But then I interviewed Tina Weymouth, from the Talking Heads after that,
right.
And told her that story, and she goes, oh, he was just having a bad day. I know exactly what you mean. I'm totally with you on that. It's just Joey. But it was like, I've never felt like backing up as fast as I did then.
Right. Did you ever like snap back at anybody?
And I don't think I ever snapped back at anybody when they were being hateful, but I would laugh. And that was we were talking about this earlier when I interviewed Nancy Wilson, the pop singer, not the heart person. She was a classic pop singer from the 60s. And I was asking her questions, and I said, well, I never would ask, who are your influences. I'd ask it in some way, so it wasn't the same thing that I always asked. But she wouldn't tell me anybody that she'd ever listened to.
Right.
And she was just kind of being just a real diva. Mm-hmm. And I started laughing. And I said, well, I said, there's surely somebody influenced you. And I said, well, then I started laughing. I said, well, maybe they didn't. And once I started laughing, she started warming up.
Right.
And I think it's kind of like Bill Monroe. Once they realize they're not going to be able to get you to go away, they loosen up.
Well, I wasn't going to do this story, but I think I'm going to go ahead and throw this one out here. Comedy, I did a lot of comedy interviews, and comedians are more idiosyncratic than singers and actors. They are the worst of the worst, and some of them are really friendly and outgoing, and some of them aren't. And I'd been doing some big ones at the time, and I had an interview coming up with Jay Leno, and I'd already talked to, I think, Jerry Seinfeld and Howie Mandel and all those people from the 80s, Jeff Foxworthy. And a lot of the people in the newsroom who were older than I was, they were like really impressed about the Jay Leno. So I felt extra pressure to do a good job with him, but I thought I could. And I was putting more thought into the kinds of questions I would ask him so he wouldn't just get the standard answers of, have you been here before?
Right.
When was the last time you were here? And what's your favorite, none of that stuff. And of course, you've got to it's really important for people to know that when you do these interviews, you can't ask yes or no questions. You have to ask open-end questions so they give you quotes, because otherwise it'll just be yes, no, yes, no. So I'm waiting for the Jay Leno interview, and it's he's late. His publicists tell me he's late, and I'm like, okay. And I'm waiting, and then he finally he calls. And I've been walking on the beach thinking of questions. I'd really put days in because I wanted to impress everybody and get a good story on this guy. And he was just gunning me down left and right and just chewing through all my questions with just like half sentence answers and, just like not being cooperative at all. And I was getting more and more anxious that I wasn't going to have a good story. And then... So I got up on this question and I said, okay, a lot of people can be funny at different times if they're, at a party and they've had a drink, or if they're with friends, at a movie or something like that. So, but you have to go on stage at 8:00 every night, regardless of how you feel, regardless of your health or your mood, and you have to entertain thousands of people. And, how do you gear yourself up for that? And he said, it's my job. It's what I do. And I just paused. And at that point, I was just offended. And I was just seeing red at this man. And I wasn't sucking up to him at all. And I just said, well, is it your job to give reporters good quotes so they can write a story about you to sell tickets to your show? And he kind of laughed. And we both were silent for a minute. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. He said, you're like my 17th interview in a row. Wow. And, I haven't eaten, and I said, well, you can get some more time back then if you want to, because I'm really out of questions here. And he said, no, I've still got time. I said, no, I'm done. And we hung up, and it was and I know I should have tried harder and everything, but it was just I was trying to do my job,
right.
And he was just being such an ass. But I do understand, and I thought about, God, 17 interviews in a row, that'd be really tedious, and probably getting the same questions over and over. And no matter how much I thought my questions were awesome, they probably... were things he had heard before, Yeah. And then I just told everybody, he's like, how'd that Jay Leno interview go? I said, not good. He wasn't very good at all. He wasn't nice, he didn't give me anything. So,
even the people, I've had some really difficult interviews, and I've interviewed people that had a reputation of being difficult.
Right.
But, I managed to get along with Ted Nugent.
Right.
Even though we were in a heated argument. Right. And people, I remember our friend Mary Constantine Deedy was sitting beside me when I was finishing up one interview with Ted Nugent. She goes, who in the world were you talking to? I said, Ted Nugent! But, he says things that aren't true. I've talked with people who have different political views and things all the time, but he would say things that weren't true, and I knew they weren't true.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, you call them out. At least I was. And it's just, and then at one point I said, when I was a teenager, if you said Ted Nugent, you thought about guitar. Immediately you thought about guitar. And I said, now you think about politics. I said, are you happy with that? Do you like that?
Right.
And it's then we started talking about music.
Right. And that one hit he had 50 years ago?
Well, there's a couple of Ted Nugent albums that I think are pretty good, even though,
I've never heard a Ted Nugent album, I don't think.
Well, he had an album called Free For All that had Meatloaf on vocals for part of it.
Okay.
And he had a live album called Intensities in 10 Cities, which is a great album.
Yeah, that's a great album.
The title, yeah.
But, there's, I think he totally sold it all out, and he's not been good since 1982.
Right.
But but most of those people, my best one that was somebody I thought would be difficult was Will Oldham, who's Bonnie Prince Billy, and just performed here at Big Ears, and he's a very big cult figure. But I was nervous about interviewing him, and we got along great. he was just as nice as he could be, and we were laughing about stuff. And he said, "Well, I got to get off. I got to talk to this fella, Steve Wilesmith." I said, "Oh," I said, "Steve Wilesmith's a friend of mine." I said, "Make sure that you tell him that the guy you just talked to said he was a real son of a bitch." so Steve calls Will Oldham after this. I found this all out from Steve afterwards. He calls him and goes, "Mr. Oldham, this is Steve Wilesmith from the Maryville Daily Times." And he goes, "I hear you're a real son of a bitch." And of course, Steve's like, "Thump, thump, thump." And I'm sure
what a way to start an interview.
Oh, I know. I'm sure he got like 5 times as good an interview as he would have gotten without it. But I just love the fact. As soon as he got done with that interview, I get this text from him. "You wait."
I enjoy your all's relationship, you and Steve.
Oh yeah, people always thought we hated each other.
Right,
so funny.
Right,
but that was like the most perfect thing I've ever pulled off in my life, and it's all thanks to Will Oldham.
Oh, that's good. I do have another story that involves you. Don't look paranoid. And that time you were arrested. No.
Which one? No.
But did you have another one? I don't know whose turn it is now, or if we're even doing turns.
I think it's your turn now.
All right. Well, okay.
Back and forth.
So Knoxville is the home of Regal Entertainment Group, which is Regal Theaters, and for the longest time, it was the number 2 theater movie chain in the country. So they have a lot of sway, and they were acquired by a London company, but they're still headquartered here. A Regal part is. But when they had all this clout in the aughts and the 2010s, they would use it to promote their charity at Variety. I think it's Variety of East Tennessee, and it's a children's charity for disadvantaged children, and it's a great charity. And what they would do is they would hold advanced screeners for movies, big movies, before the movies would be released. So it wasn't really a premiere so much as an advanced screener, and they would bring stars in. And I wrote a little list here, they had Will Ferrell and Hugh Jackman, Tom Cruise, Channing Tatum, Dennis Quaid. They had a lot of big names that have come for these performances. Or, no, not performances. It's really a little setup, and they've changed it from year to year. I'm not sure they're even doing them anymore. I know they're doing like some kind of sports type things that they do now with the Tennessee Vols. But anyway, it's out of... So they do these at their big 18-screen theater out in West Knoxville, and they put tents out in the parking lot. And the way they would generally work out is celebrities would come into the airport, and the actors would come into the airport and be brought to these tents on the east side of the theater, and they would have VIP room where they would go in and mingle with corporate people, and then a VIP room where there was like corporate, big corporate sponsors. And then they would have a media room. And Regal would always make sure we got an interview with the celebrities and maybe, a TV station too. And then the celebrities would go back out into the limo and pull around to the front of the theater and walk the red carpet. And in the parking lot, they would set up a barricade, and all of these fans could come and just see them for free. So they were allowed to come and just watch them walk up the red carpet. And then they would sometimes interview with some other media, because people come from all around, before they go into the lobby. They go into the lobby where other people who have bought tickets, just like $100 tickets, just rank and file people, to go watch the screener. And they would go in and they would go up on stage and give a speech, presenting the movie, and then everybody would file into the theater and they'd show the movie. Chaos, pandemonium every time. Nothing ever worked the way it was supposed to. But one of the first ones that I went to was the second Twilight movie, and Taylor Lautner and Kristen Stewart were coming to be the celebrities, and it was in 2009. So they were coming, and we mapped out a plan of having a reporter and a photographer and at least one online person. And I went too, so that we could oversee it. There was a gal from Texas who was just a big fan of Taylor Lautner, so I had her as a guest, journalist. And we were told the celebrities are unpredictable. You get told this every time, and you don't know if they're going to talk to you or not. And I don't think Tom Cruise talked to anybody, which probably isn't that surprising. But pretty much all the others at least talked to some of the fans or whatever. But we were told that Taylor Lautner, I think, was just 18, and Kristen Stewart was only 20 at the time. And she was known to be kind of an introvert. So we were thinking we're probably not going to get much from her. And so we were just bracing for whatever happened, and they came out of that limo, and Taylor Lautner, just 18 years old, like owned the crowd, and he had this big, toothy, white smile and these gleaming eyes, and he had Kristen Stewart on his arm, and they were actually late because when she found out, she didn't realize it was a children's charity, and I think she had a more risque dress that she was going to wear, so she changed at the airport and put in a more modest dress. But he just led her down there, and they went out and they talked to every single fan who wanted to talk to him, and she did too. And it was like really surprising. And he came up to me, he came up to everybody, introduced himself, smiled, shook hands. It was just like working the crowd. And so that was really impressive, and it was a lot of fun, and they were good. She was good. We were all like, oh, she's probably the worst person to do this kind of thing. But she was absolutely fine. She was overshadowed by him, but she was absolutely fine. So then in 2013, now Terry Morrow, our entertainment writer, he usually covered these events, and unfortunately he passed away in early 2013. And in fall of 2013, they brought the second Hunger Games movie to premiere or to advanced screen. And their guests were the director of the Hunger Games, Francis Lawrence, and Liam Hemsworth, one of the stars. Now, at this point in Liam Hemsworth's life, he'd been dating Miley Cyrus for years, and he had proposed to her earlier that year, and they had just broken up. So all of a sudden, he's in the tabloid fodder. And he was only, I think, 23 at the time when he came. And I was thinking, okay, this is a guy who dates Miley Cyrus, who is just about the most extroverted person ever. He's also the little brother of Chris Hemsworth, who's like the most extroverted person ever. So he's probably going to be pretty cool. Now, the paparazzi thing, the tabloids were writing him up because he broke up with Miley. And they ended up getting back together and getting married and being married for years and then getting divorced. But I was hoping for the best. And I needed you to do this interview.
Right.
I don't know if you had done any of them yet, maybe one. But Terry pretty much did all of them up to that point. And so we were planning it. And you like this director, Francis Lawrence. He had done, what movies did he do? He had already done Constantine. He did I Am Legend. He did Water for Elephants.
Yeah, that's all.
And so you were looking forward to interviewing him, and I'm like, well, talk to Liam Hemsworth. That's why everybody's here is Liam Hemsworth.
And I had no idea.
And you were like,
really.
I'll try to talk to him and everything. But and I thought, Wayne's going to really good job with the director, which is great. But Liam Hemsworth, I don't know.
I like talking to directors better than actors.
Right. Well, they do more of the work, really.
Right.
But anyway, so I was concerned that we wouldn't get a photographer back in the media room where we were waiting for them. And it was a little room. It was just the four of us on stools, you and me and Liam and what's his name, Francis. And but I was hopeful with Liam being Chris Hemsworth's little brother. And Chris Hemsworth was breaking huge then. He was Thor, and he was in Cabin in the Woods. He was already in a lot of movies and just like all over the place. And so Liam was like coming up, he's like 6 years younger and coming up in his shadow. And so we had photographers out and about, but you couldn't get from one area to another very easily. And that was their experience over the years, is people would get trapped. I got trapped once back in the VIP room and couldn't get into the lobby to see their speeches because they would take your phones, and they really had it clamped down. But so we were in this little room, and we were waiting, and we knew they were there, and they were going through the VIP rooms. And I had a camera in case our photographer didn't get them on the red carpet, or something went wrong and the rest of our staff didn't connect or didn't see them on stage or whatever. I thought I'm going to try to do this. And so in they come, and you start talking to the director, and we were all sitting there, and I had my camera, and Liam Hemsworth was in a foul mood. That's all I can say. And you did try to talk to him. You didn't blow him off.
I can't remember hardly any of this.
Well, I mean, he didn't give you anything, but the director and you hit it off fine. So Liam was just sitting there watching you two talk. Liam and I were sitting there watching you two talk, and I was taking Liam's picture, and he was getting madder and madder at every picture I took, even though he knew, I was with the media and everything. And let's just say it didn't go well. It went well with you and the director, and I thought Liam was about to pound my head in. But I still have those pictures, and every now and then they'll come up when I'm going back through all my old photos. I do a lot of travel photos and everything. And I just see these steely blue eyes like glaring at me. And I was like, these are really terrifying and kind of cool. But anyway, again, he probably has done great interviews since then. But you get someone at the wrong time, and you're hung.
Well,
all right. Ooh, we've been running along here.
It's fun.
So you don't remember anything about that? Or?
Not really. I mean, I didn't.
Well, I had really been pushing you to do Liam Henson. It was clear he wasn't going to cooperate with that.
Yeah.
So I was glad that you hit it off with the director at least.
Well, I mean, there's sometimes you just kind of. I mean, you're not going to get anything from somebody.
Yeah, they don't have to give it to you. And
it's funny, the one time that things got really. I was worried. I spent the day with Randy Travis has just been in the news because they just released an AI single where they've used his voice, and somebody else's voice to create a new Randy Travis song. And I actually heard some of it yesterday. It actually sounds good. It's kind of spooky that it works so well. But he had just hit it big on his second album, and I'd talked to him a couple times before that. We got along really, really well. So they let me spend the day with him before he performed at the Tennessee Valley Fair. He was still going to honor his commitment that he'd signed a year earlier when he was just a rising country star, and he was at that point he was the biggest thing out there. So I sat with him during a autograph signing, and then we went to the fair. I rode with him in the limo that they had, and our photographer, and you would remember this photographer. Went too.
Speaking of people with idiosyncrasies.
Yes. And I've nearly gotten along with all photographers, but this one photographer who was difficult.
Okay.
Difficult.
And I want to say most of our photographers were the easiest going
they were
in the
great.
newsroom.
And they would make your interviews better sometimes.
Yes,
I mean, people
absolutely.
like Jack Kirkland would
favorite people. Right.
They would like the photographer better than they liked you. And
right.
People
they just wanted to talk to the photographer. They wanted you to shut up and go away. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you'd get better stuff. But anyway, I'm backstage with Randy Travis, and we're sitting on his bus, and he's warming up. He is singing Merle Haggard songs, and it's like, man, this is so good. And this photographer keeps putting a light meter on his face.
Oh my God!
And you would remember this photographer. It was the shorter photographer.
I know who you're
talking.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And I thought Randy was about to punch him. It was. I mean, and he's Randy Travis is the easiest guy, nicest guy. When Randy Travis was drunk and out of his mind on drugs or whatever he was, and went in naked to the convenience store to get some beer, they said, "You can't get beer standing here naked," and he goes, "Oh, okay," and leaves. That's how Randy Travis is. But he was pissing. This photographer was pissing him off so bad. I thought, we're gonna come to blows here in a minute.
Right.
I finally had to kind of drag him off.
See, again, it's situational, and none of the stuff we've talked about are things that would have made it in stories.
Oh no, that especially,
and people would probably want to hear this more than. Yeah. What do you think, John? I mean, it's
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Well, I thought this guy's going to ruin my relationship with this guy.
Yeah.
Because I had a really good situation where I could call him up, and I could get an interview pretty much any time.
Yeah.
And they let me hang out all day long, but I was ready to strangle the photographer.
Right.
And like you said, I mean, generally the photographers are great.
Oh yeah, they when they do their job well, they just fade into the background and just do great work.
Yeah, or if you're having a tough time, sometimes they can loosen up.
Sometimes they'll ask questions that you don't even think of.
Yeah.
And it's damn, thanks.
It's great.
Yeah,
but
not always.
Yeah, but I thought it
not
was,
all of them.
I thought we were going to make the news. It was we got a lot of stuff to talk about though.
Yeah, I mean we run through all this, and I've got 6 other things I could talk about.
Oh, yeah, me too. I took some notes on stuff. But.
So maybe next time, if we listen to this and feel like it was a good show, then we'll do more. No, not next time, but another time. Yeah, we can do that. Well, do you want to move on to how we saw it segment of our How We Heard It?
You go first.
All right. I was going to recommend a different movie, but I was thinking about the last episode, and I want to recommend the movie Tommy, which somehow I failed to do last week when I was talking it up. It's a rock opera filmed by director Ken Russell. It's over the top and crazy. And it's based on The Who's album Tommy, which is the rock opera,
right?
And they have a great cast. They have Anne Margaret plays Tommy's mother, and she was actually nominated for Best Actress at the Academy Awards for that. So I was talking about it like it was some fluke thing, but she's a great actress, and she was great in this role. It had other actors. It had Jack Nicholson had a little role. Tina Turner, not an actor but a singer. She was fantastic.
She became an actress too, though.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Elton John was in it. Who am I thinking? Oh, Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed was Tommy's stepdad.
Oliver Reed cannot sing.
No, he can't sing, and that was kind of the charm of him because he was kind of an oaf, and and he was sort of the villain, and he was just cashing in on Tommy, and all that stuff. And Mom was, still her son, but it's a great weird adventure. It's kind of a Tommy's like a Jesus type character because he's really good at pinball, and none of it makes sense. I can't imagine this movie ever being made today, and but the visuals are stunning and bizarre, and the music. I appreciate the music with other singers instead of just the band members singing all the parts. We talked about that last week. I won't go into it again, but it just hit me when I was thinking about something film or TV to watch that I didn't recommend Tommy last week, but everything I said should have been taken as a recommendation. So now I'm officially recommending it. Go dig it up. It was a 76 movie, I think, or 77. It was the same year as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I think it's 75 or 76. It's not 77 because I graduated that year, and it was long before I graduated.
Okay, yeah. Anne Margaret lost to Nurse Ratched, but that's okay. And they said when they were nominated, they said a lot of people, you don't actually have to see a movie to vote on it in the Academy Awards, and a lot of people just didn't see Tommy, and that Louise Lasser? No. Who was Nurse Ratched? Oh my God! Anyway,
it's going to come to me in a minute.
That actress won. Because just by the sweeping effect of everybody else and everything else about that movie won, and she was good. Louise, not Fletcher.
No,
Fletcher. Oh my God. Okay, I didn't do my research. Anyway,
John's looking at that.
I don't recommend One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I loved One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Everybody did, and that was the thing. It's just like everybody loved it, and I like the
Louise Fletcher.
Louise Fletcher. Okay, I eventually got to that.
Well, if I were going to recommend a Ken Russell movie, I'd recommend The Devils, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
So.
Well, neither is Tommy.
No, Tommy's not either. But, I do like Ken Russell movies. But I'm going to recommend, just because the whole AI thing, a movie that got slagged by a lot of folks, AI, which directed by Steven Spielberg. It was going to be directed by Stanley Kubrick, and he decided that Spielberg would be better for it, and Spielberg rewrote the script. He used some of the stuff that Kubrick had worked on, and I think it's great. I think it's a very neglected movie because I don't think people got it. It was a total blend of those styles, from camera angles and just the tone. And it's got Joel Haley Osment, who I think was great as the little AI cyborg robot.
Wasn't there a Knoxville boy who played this son?
Jake Thomas.
Yeah, that was one of his first.
Yeah, Bob Thomas is a radio guy here in town. And Jake Thomas, he went on to be on Nickelodeon shows and things like that.
Yeah, he was the...
or Disney shows. I can't remember which it was.
Was it Disney? Or Anyway.
But anyway, yeah, Jake,
that's a good one.
Jake did quite a few movies. He did The Cell. He was in that for a little short piece, too. But yeah, he became a pretty good actor.
Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, he became a pretty good actor. But... AI, I think, is it's got Jude Law in it. It's got William Hurt. It's I think it's very underrated. I think this is a really good time to watch it just because there's so much talk about AI. And this is a movie that makes you think.
Yeah, that's good. What was the one that just came out this year about they were saving a AI kid? I shouldn't have brought that up.
I don't know about that one.
Don't ever, if you're on a podcast, people, don't say, oh, what was that movie that? Because then you're going to spend 10 minutes looking dumb. So never mind. That movie wasn't
There's
good.
some other movie out there.
Forget that movie. It was a terrible movie. Music recommendations. So I was going to talk about a celebrity encounter with a singer named Poe. Mm-hmm. And she was really great back in that Lilith era. She had an album called Hello, but she did a really interesting movie that she released in 2000, and it was called Haunted. And the interesting thing about it is her brother, Mark Z. Danielewski, why do I always pick these people with these names? He wrote a book called House of Leaves, and it was this very surreal book about etherealism and not knowing where you are and being trapped and everything. But the best part about this is their father, Tad Danielewski, he was like a academician and a scientist, and he was a much older dad, and he did recordings for his kids, not to them, but for them to find later and hear later. And Poe, she dovetails her album with her dad's dialogue recordings that he had left for her and her brother's book. Oh, and cool. She creates this whole like finding her way and the anger she had at her dad. I think he died, when they were young, obviously. And the whole story, you've got his her dad kind of introduces the songs, and she like sings back and forth to him, and she's got all this rage that she works through and sadness and defiance and everything. And she's using her brother's book as kind of a guide for some of the plot lines too. And she's got like Beatles influence and just a lot of really great songs, and it's really rewarding. That again, it's Poe, just Poe. And the name of the album is Haunted, and it came out in 2000. And maybe someday I'll talk about this fun meetup I had with her in Nashville.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to recommend, just because I just read that they've started recording new music again. They've been broken up for a while. A band called Hem, H-E-M, which you know too. Mm-hmm. We actually both reviewed, one of the rare times we both reviewed an album at the same time. Their last album, Departure and Farewell. But I think the best entry point to their music is an album called Funnel Cloud.
Okay.
We've got two male singers, or two male songwriters, and a female vocalist, which their names escape me right now. But their music is just extremely pretty. Mm-hmm. But everything has, the songwriting is deep, and it's very expressive, and I've never played it for anybody that didn't really, really like it. Mm-hmm. And I think they hardly got heard anywhere.
Okay.
But they're one of those...
I remember them. I don't remember Funnel Cloud, though. I think I reviewed that other album.
Yeah, you reviewed Departure and Farewell. That was their last album. Okay. We both reviewed that one, and I put Funnel Cloud on my top of the year list whenever that came out. But all of their albums are good. But that one gives you everything that's great about them in one package.
Cool.
So it's somebody to check out for sure, and you and your female singer-songwriter.
That's right. I'm going to keep at it, man. I mean, it's like I'm not done. I'm not done. I want women to get all the recognition they deserve.
But they're back together, apparently making music, and I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited that they're coming back.
Cool. All right. Well, John, you got anything for us?
Well, I was telling Wayne, two bands. One is a band that's been around since the 90s that I had never heard of, but just discovered them the other night, and they've got like 8 albums. They're really popular in Japan, and they're called Silver Sun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like super harmony pop, power pop stuff.
Yep.
And then another band from Atlanta, they've got, I think, 4 albums out, and they're called Omni.
Okay.
And it's real kind of Gang of Four, XTC-ish, kind of clashy guitar stuff.
Okay.
There's hooks hidden all over the place.
Okay, I love hooks. Love a good hook.
Those are my 2.
All right. Awesome. I know Silverstone, Silver Sun. There we go with Silver Sun. I really should learn how to say names right.
Well, you were thinking of Alicia Silverstone.
That's it, I'm sure.
That's what it was.
And I'm going to go watch Clueless now. Okay. Well, I think we're done. And thank you all for listening to us. I hope we're making you think or laugh or scoff or whatever. But thanks for being there, and we'll be back around with something new.
We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to How We Heard It with Chuck Campbell and Wayne Bledsoe, a podcast about music, art, culture, movies, whatever they want to talk about. How We Heard It was recorded in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Arbor Studio by John Baker. If you believe you've been abducted by aliens during listening to this podcast, we take no responsibility for that. How We Heard It is a Tear Owl production, and if you'd like to reach out to Chuck or Wayne, send an email to howweheardit@gmail.com. Come on back next week and we'll have another show for you.
Okay, welcome to How We Have It, and this is
How We Heard It.
Whoa! Now I've done. Oh my God, are we all drunk?
Welcome to How We Done It.
How we have it.
How we done
How
it.
we did it. Who done that?
Who done did it?
Yeah, who done did it?
Who the hell are we?
Yes. All right.